Welcome to Canard Boulevard. I can't believe the day has finally come. 4 months of maintenance. It's time for the first test flight. Coming up. All right, 4 months. 4 months of maintenance. Here we are. This is going to be the first time this engine has been run in 4 months. We're going to start it up, let the oil warm up, and we're just going to watch the instruments, make sure everything is copacetic, and then once we have 100 degrees oil temperature, we're going to do a full run-up. And that run-up, I want two things. I want to get the static RPM at full power, and then I also want to make sure that the prop is not going to slip. I did put a mark on the prop and the hub so that if it does actually slip or move at all, I will know about it. And yeah, that's it. Let's get to it.
Fuel PSI 12. 1, 2, 3, full rich, idle cutoff, boost off, quarter-inch open, on throttle, magneto, or left off, right ignition on, brakes are on, clear prop. Oil pressure is up. Alternator amps, that's fine. I know about that. Bring it to a low idle. Oil pressure is good, we're at 75 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to lean it so we don't foul the plug. Alternator amps is down to 13, that's good. We were charging pretty good. We're at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. $99. $100. We are at 56 psi, bottom of the green arc at 1,000 RPM. All right, we're gonna go full rich, and now full power run up. I saw 76% at 2200 RPM. That's at 30.04 inches.
Highly successful test and run up. I saw no issues in terms of instrumentation. I did see pretty much what I was expecting from the RPM, and now I'm going to put the airplane down in the grazing mode so that it doesn't tip over, and we'll get the cowl installed and get it ready for its test flight. And this is the first time I've actually parked it with the new nose gear down like this, so I'm just checking to make sure that the foot is going onto the ground like I'd expect it to. And it is. It works fine. All right, that was good. Now we will go over the engine with a fine-tooth comb, check for leaks before we put the cowl on and take it up for test flight. So putting the cowl on is always easier with a friend. So after I finish my inspection here, I go over and grab Justin, who is the lead pilot for the Life Flight helicopter that's based right nearby. And he came over and helped me get that on there, which is great of him to do. And then, of course, I spent a lot of time putting all the screws in the cowl because there's a lot of screws to hold these cowls in place. And like I said, I put them all in loose, make sure that they all fit in there properly, and then screw them all in tight. And now you can see I'm doing my pre-flight with my checklist in hand, just going over and make sure that everything is exactly right. Okay, checked, and rechecked. I'm ready for the first test flight. The first test flight is just going to be a single loop around the pattern. Take off, come around, come back. I did have a couple issues. One, I noticed my CHTs, my cooling, the cylinder temperatures were hot. Hotter than they normally are, all four of them. Second, I didn't discover this till later, but the USB port that powers both my iPad and my camera was not working. So I have no camera footage from any of these flights. I do have audio because that's recorded separately, but it's pretty boring to listen to audio without the camera. So let's just go through and I'll show you the pass and what I did. So I took off on the north runway, which is the short runway, not ideal, but that's what the winds were favoring. Went around and somebody came in and decided, hey, we're going to switch to 27 on the west runway. So I came around, switched runways, came in to land on 27, but I cut in way too close and decided, nope, not going to do that. I'm too high, too fast. So I went around for another try, came around, back to 27 again, and landed just fine. Get down, I pulled onto the ramp and did an inspection just to make sure everything looked good, and saw this Turbo Dakota there with its owner. And believe it or not, this guy owns the hangar directly across from the builder of my Cozy. I've actually met him before. He just happened to be stopping in for the night. He was visiting his son who lives nearby, and he looked at the airplane and said, where did you get that? I'm like, oh, I got it from the builder. He's like, yeah, but where? I'm like, Racine. He says, I thought so. Is that Daryl's plane? I'm like, yeah. He said, I have the hangar right across from him. I've flown in this airplane before. What are the chances? All right, so now it's time to go up for a second test flight. So for this test flight, I decided I was going to go up and fly for about an hour, 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours, just to get the 2 hours of flight time on the propeller bolts that are required before they need their first retorquing. So I did some speed tests, and then I flew over to Lorain County and did a whole bunch of pattern work, just did a bunch of touch and goes over there. The whole time I'm noticing that I am having significant cooling issues. I'm having trouble, and it's new cylinders, not the old cylinder. The two cylinders that have the blast tubes are not doing too bad, but the other two cylinders, which have never had a problem before, are now hot. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but we'll look into that. I did see some amazing flooding. You can see me doing spins and circles around there. I'm circling around this flooded area because we've just had so much rain here. So after I burned up some fuel and got some time on the prop, came back in and landed, no issue at all. So a beautiful flight. The sun was starting to set. I brought the airplane inside, and sorry about the flickering. That's my stupid LED lights in there that the camera doesn't like. So I started taking put the airplane to bed, but then started taking the cowl off because I do need to put some top coats on that primer because I do just have the primer paint on there. I wanted to get up and testing, so I didn't want to wait for that paint to dry. So here I am taking off the cowl again by myself. Once I've got that off, we'll go over here. You can see where the primer is on there, and I put a top coat on. This is the same enamel paint that I used for the nose gear when I rebuilt it, and I won't bore you with this, but multiple coats went on there and then some clear coat. So it's the next day. My test flights were yesterday. Let me talk about what I did and what happened. I did a run-up outside. Everything looked good. Did an inspection. Checked the propeller torque. Everything was good. Put the cowl on. Did another run-up. Then I went down and did one circuit. So I took off, flew around the pattern once, landed, came back in, inspected again. Everything again looked good. And at that point, I then took off, and flew for an hour and a half and went through a whole bunch of tests. Tested the autopilot, tested all the electronic trim, and everything that I did, that I touched, I tested. And here are the results. First off, my USB plug here, which is what powers my iPad, and my camera is not working. And that is the reason why I have no camera footage from my flight yesterday, unfortunately. So, I'll have to pull that out and see what's going on with that. Next, heat. I did try turning on the heat, and I felt the absolute faintest little breath of hot air coming out, but nowhere near what I would expect, which was a blast of hot air coming out. So, we need to deal with that. We'll talk about that in just a moment. The new nose here, no complaints, worked perfectly. All right, come around back to my brand new Cato prop. I do have this splatter on here, and I have not been able to figure out what it is. It's almost like paint. It's not oil. And I've tried a few different things. It's not water soluble. It's not solvent soluble. You can abrade it gently, but in doing so, you actually end up marking the surface of the prop. So I'm not quite sure what this splatter is. It's on all three prop blades. It's in line pretty much with the exhaust, but all I can think of is that it was some kind of oil that was maybe baked on. I'm not quite sure, but it's on all three blades. And I had something go through the prop and gouge it. I've already filled it, but brand new prop, and something went through it already. So I was looking around trying to figure out what the hell went through my prop, and then I found the answer. There was a screw clamp right here. As you can see, this exhaust is loose because the clamp, which is what you see over on this side, it let go. It must have broke or vibrated loose and came off. Whatever it was on here. It was extremely tight, and it came off. I don't think it slid off because there's no marks from it sliding. If it was actually sliding back, I think it would have left marks on both pipes. I think it broke. So, what to do about that? I think I will maybe put it on back here behind the baffle, so if it does break again in the future, it's not going to go through the prop. And I may end up doing the exact same thing on this side because I really don't want stuff going through my prop. It's bad and expensive. All right, heating. The heater shroud. The air coming in, the blast air coming into the heater shroud is not blasting enough. There's just no pressure there, and it's not forcing air back through the system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this hose off of here. And at some point, I've ordered one. I don't know when it'll arrive or when I'll do it, but I'm just going to mount a NACA duct right here. And I'll plumb that in, maybe down here. And that will take air from outside the cowl, bring it in directly into that heating duct, and hopefully that will alleviate that issue. That will free up some of the area for the cooling. Not that I have cooling issues. Now, as you may recall, cylinder 4 had a scat tube on here, a blast tube, right there. That was on there when I bought it, and it was put on there to alleviate cooling issues with cylinder 4. Cylinder 4, as long as I've had the plane, has been the coldest cylinder, and I've never had a cooling problem. Cylinder 2 was my problem child. That's where all my limitations were. And so what I did is I added another blast tube, just like this one, pointed at cylinder 2. And it worked. Cylinder 4 and cylinder 2 are now my coldest cylinders. However, over on this side, cylinders 1 and 3, these were always within like 2 or 3 degrees of one another. They were almost exactly the same. Cylinder 1 is good. Cylinder 3 is off the charts. As soon as I was climbing out, this one was just over-temping. I was over 400 degrees in a hot second as soon as I was climbing out, and I had to really pull power back and climb delicately to keep the cylinder down, the heat down on cylinder 3. Nothing has changed in this area coming up to these cylinders. So I think what's happened is I'm using up more air from the blast tubes and less air pressure is available to force through these two cylinders. So what I'm going to do is modify that lip right there, that ramp, and make a more gradual slope and put it farther back and then slope up back here to try to convince the air to move back here and then up. I might even get a second ramp up here, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But for now, that's what I'm going to try is take out the heating blast tube and modify that ramp and see if I can get some more pressure up in here. I have flown off the 2 hours on the prop, so I'm going to take the spinner off and then retorque the prop bolts, which is Cato's recommendation after 2 hours of flight time. And we'll check all the other torques on the extension and get things put back together. So I did pull off the spinner here, and then I'm going to get my torque wrench out and check the torque of all the different bolts on here. One of the safety wire that I have on here looked a little bit loose, so I'm just going to cut that off and replace it with new. Just make sure that it's good and tight and is not going to move and not going to allow the bolts to vibrate loose at all. Then we'll replace the spinner. All right, I'm going to build a diffuser for the NACA inlet on the engine. One of the things that I've done some research and what they basically say, the experts say, is that you need a diffuser that has a curve that is a 14-inch radius curve. So I've cut a piece of scrap wire here that is exactly 14 inches. I'll hold this end here, and then I will draw, holding a pen at this end, and we'll get a nice 14-inch curve. That'll be more than enough. So there's my 14-inch curve. And then I will cut that out, and that will give us a template. Sorry for all the noise, my air conditioning just started up down here. Alright, so let's do the vertical planform first. So I have an inlet that is 13.5 inches. And I'm just going to draw a reference line here so I can make sure that everything is perpendicular. Okay, so there's the 14-inch radius curve on that side, and then we'll do the same thing on this side. All right, so we want the outlet area of the NACA duct to be double the inlet area. I have done the math behind what that needs to be, which means the outlet of mine needs to be 20.5 wide, where the inlet is, did I say 14 or 13? Did I do this wrong? Yeah, I did do it wrong. It's actually 14 and a half, not 13 and a half. All right, we'll just draw another line. It'll be fine. Just redraw this out another inch to 14 and a half. We'll retrace our 14-inch radius from that. All right, and the desired outlet width to make the outlet area double is 20 and a half. I suppose there's some kind of trig you can do that would define how far away this is, but I'm just eyeballing it. So I think it's about there and there. Let's just make sure that that is equal on both sides. So here is the vertical planform that we need for the diffuser outlet of the NACA duct. Now for this is the vertical. Now if we want to do the horizontal, we want to do exactly the same thing, but it is going to be 3.5 to 4.95. So let's do that over here. We'll do a line that is 3.5. And this one only has it going up. It does not go down. Because it doesn't actually move that way inside the airplane. An outlet area, or outlet distance of 4.95. So if I take a vertical trace off this, alright, now that I've transferred my design into cardboard, so we're using cardboard aided design, we'll start assembling this. So this is going to fit here, and then this will go like that, and then the same for the other side. And we'll see if I can duct tape these things in place. Alright, so there is the NACA duct diffuser. Now it should be bent just a little bit more than it is, but it'll give us an idea of whether it's even possible or how we can fit this in the airplane. We should have the 3.5 height right there, which is a little bit, we got a little bit more, we got 3.75, so we may have to cut that down just a bit. And then we should have 14.5 across the bottom, which we do. So yeah, we'll go take that, fit it in the airplane, see if it fits. And if it does, then we will come back and make one out of fiberglass and put it in there permanently. And that actually will sit up like that. So the air comes in and then it diffuses it up this way and out this way. The whole point behind this is that you have high velocity, low pressure coming in here, and then you expand it outwards gradually so it doesn't separate. And because you're expanding it, it slows down, and as it slows down, the pressure increases. It's called pressure recovery. So let's see how that works. Alright, it's a few days later. I've been down with a sore throat, some nasty bug that's been going around for a few days, so I'm behind where I expected to be. Some things that I found. The drive belt for the alternator is now too loose. I did tension it. It's obviously stretched, so I've got to readjust the alternator belt. I did notice that the voltage was perfect, so the changes that I did, including the new alternator belt, I think solved the issue. However, now onto the topic of cooling. I'm noticing that my baffles here are pushed out and not tight around the cylinder fins like they should be, and I think that is partially because the new position of the alternator is not quite where the cutouts are in the baffling for it, so I'm going to have to modify that so that these baffles sit flush against the cylinder fins. And the same goes at the back. These should be pushed in more, and you can see at the back here that should be in that, like that, up tight against those cylinder fins. So that could be part of my cooling issue. I do see this new piece of metal here that I built to go around the exhaust. I must have mismeasured. I've got about a ½ inch gap around one side against this cowl. So I've got to make a new one of those and fit it in there. Lastly, on the cowl itself, this was what used to be there, and it was like this, and it was just a tiny little deflection upwards. So I'm going to change that. First, I've got a diffuser that I built. This is my temporary one. I just want to install this and test it and make sure that it actually has the desired effect. It should, because there's absolutely no diffuser in there right now. This can't do anything but help, I would think. And then I also rebuilt this with a new one that actually slopes back a bit before it goes up to get the air back and then going up towards the cylinders, because with this one it's kind of aiming it up at the front of the engine in front of the cylinders, which isn't doing a whole lot of good. So this one, it actually lets the air go back a little ways before it starts deflecting it up towards the two cylinders on this side. So hopefully that will have a good effect there. Alright, so this is actually more work than I was anticipating. I thought I was just going to come out here, throw in these two pieces and go, but seeing what I see here now, it looks like the lower cowl is going to have to come back off again, which I'm not entirely thrilled about, but You know, gotta do what you gotta do. So this was the bracket inside that was holding that rear baffle in place in a very inconvenient spot, very tough to get to this bolt. And as you can see, it's seen better days. I just basically just pulled it apart with my hands there. So yeah, that's not good. I'll have to build a new bracket. All right, I built this replacement bracket here. I had some thicker bar stock that I used to build this. So I just matched the dimensions of the old one. And hopefully this will last longer and won't crack under the load. Let's install that now. All right, I'm back from dinner. I should probably explain what I was just working on. So there is my, you can see down in there, I'm gonna get some light on. You can see the bracket that I just built, and it's down in there. That was really, really tough to get in there and assembled. As you can see, the access is not great. I had two problems. One, it was the same problem at the back and at the front. And you can see these baffles that curve around the fins of the cylinders. And the whole idea behind these is that the air comes up through the bottom and then it goes around the cylinder through the fins, all the way through and then up out the top. And on the front and on the back, the baffle was out by a good half an inch. Actually, and on the front it was even more. So the air was coming up from the bottom and just going around the outside of the cylinders instead of through the fins of the cylinders, which is not going to cool them very well. So now I've got these baffles tightened into the cylinders, and so the air will go through where it's supposed to go instead of around the cylinder, which is what was happening before. I originally thought that maybe it was the alternator that was causing the baffle to come out, but it turns out it was that broken bracket in there that was causing that. I am going to seal around the alternator better, and I have found a few places where I've got holes. If you look down here, you can see there's a good, maybe a couple square inches. You can see light coming in from the bottom there. You should not see that. That means air is coming from the high pressure area down here and just blowing straight up through and coming out here. That's not good. That's not supposed to be working like that. So I'm going to block that off there. There was one other that I found, and it is right back in here. If I put a flashlight back in here, you can see there's a big old hole back there. And so high pressure air is just blowing right through there. You can see there it is right back in there. And so all kinds of high pressure air is just blowing right through there and bypassing the cylinders. So that's lost cooling air right there. So I will block that up as well. And there's another one right down here. As you can see down there, that is letting air through. So that's going to get cleaned up and closed up. I'm going to build some silicone baffles just for around the pipes here, just to seal those up. And I got the same thing on this side. And of course, I got to build this out a little bit to seal better against the cowl. So I want to say I have in total probably found about 6 to 8 square inches of leakage, just where air can get through from the high pressure side to the low pressure side without going through the cylinder fins, which is what I wanted to do because we need that to be cooling the cylinders. So hopefully once I have cleaned up and closed up all those gaps, we should see a significant difference and improvement in cooling. Next thing I had to do was tighten up the alternator belt, so loosen that off, tension the belt correctly, and then tighten it back together. A simple task. All right, now we're on to the baffle around the exhaust, adding a little bit of silicone there to fill that out so it seals up properly against the cowl. And now we're going to seal up that hole below the alternator, or above the alternator rather, that was going directly up to the top. I cut a lot of this out because it's basically just
images of me doing exactly this like you see here. So that was a bit of work. Next, we're doing the same thing on the top. I'm sealing the hole that was at the bat that was allowing high pressure air to flow through. Now we're installing the diffuser. I'm putting this new diffuser in place and just testing and making sure it fits. And then I put a couple idle clamps on the engine mount and then fastening it in place.
All right, so here's the diffuser. It's installed, solid, not going anywhere. It's attached to the engine mount, so it's definitely not moving. And I have, if you look up here, see I've sealed this hole, and I've got some silicone on there, silicone baffle sealing that hole. Got silicone baffling down here, sealing that hole, and that is still curing up there. And then I have more silicone baffling sealing up this hole, being held in place with a mousetrap clamp, because that's all I had here that I could find. And I bumped it, apparently, but there we go. That's all the cooling air leaks that I've been able to find. There was a couple baffles that just needed to be bent back in place, and that's done. I'm gonna let the silicone cure overnight. We'll come back in the morning and cowl it up, take it up for a test flight.
All right. Go. Medina traffic, Scramble Cozy, 797 Delta Lima, departing 27. These are low 300s. Fine. Oil is at 94. Having trouble getting it up because the OET is 46 today. Full power. Everything's in the green. Oil temp coming up. Airspeed's alive. 40. 50. And 60, and there's 70, and we have positive rates of gear up. We're gonna pitch for 100. Temps are looking all right. Cylinder 1's getting up there at 393. Cylinder 1 and 2 both at 394. Cylinder 3, 397. Yeah, it's still way too hot. We're at 400 on 3. All right. 2 and 3 are at 404. The others are right near 400. And our OAT is 43, so something's not right. What is different? I'm at pattern altitude 120. Let's head out to the practice area to the south. Got traffic experimental 797 Delta Lima is departing to the southwest.
Cedar, takeoff Tango, final runway 4,
I thought for sure this was going to deal with the cooling issues. On a day like this at 42 Fahrenheit, out OAT, I should be seeing low 30s. That's what I used to see. So here we are at 71% power, and I'm high 300s. My number 3 is the hottest at 395. Number 1 and number 3 is still hot. I gotta pull back speed a bit because hitting some turbulence here and a little too much. Number 1 and number 3 still the hot, with hot 2. And those used to be my cold ones. 2 and 4 are now at 368 and 361. 1 and 3 at 372 and 379. So, I mean, it's balancing, but the overall cooling is not great, especially considering it's 38 degrees out. I just feel like I'm not getting a ton of air through there. Not quite sure why. You can see I'm cruising at an indicated 150 knots, truing out at also 150, 149. Well, it's varying because it's fairly bumpy today, so it's kind of all over the place. But as you can see, I'm at 63%. I do have the mixture pulled back a bit, and my temps are around 360, 370, which is okay.
Fulton County traffic, Lance 128, turns left base, 27, Fulton County.
However, my OAT is 38, so it should be quite a bit lower. And I'm a little concerned about what it's going to be when I'm flying in much hotter temperatures.
County, Cherokee 4742 Lima, departing runway 24, Seneca County.
So I'm going to pull the data from this flight, and I'll find some other flights with similar speeds and OATs, see how it compares. And here is Cedar Point, the giant amusement park, which is not open. You can see the massive parking lot there is completely empty. And a bunch of roller coasters and what? And a bunch of roller coasters, all just sitting there, not being used, but I assume this is probably going to open fairly soon. See, there's one, I think it's called the Top Thrill Dragster. It kind of goes up, straight up, and then straight down again. Oh, they're actually running the roller coaster. I can see it being tested there. So Cedar Point has either the tallest or the fastest or something of that sort roller coasters in the world. It's known for it. And that's me not paying attention to my altitude. The flight director telling me, hey, climb. Gear is down.
County traffic, Archer 5366, Whiskey is 10 miles on the RNAV runway 06 at 2,700 descending. We'll be using the RNAV 26, then circle land 24, full stop, Seneca County.
Medina County, experimental cozy 707, Delta Lima, left base 27. Okay, we're too fast, so let's get the speed down. Alright, now we can bring down the landing brake.
Good guard. Guard? What's guard?
Idiots. Medina County, experimental cozy 797 Delta Lima, turning final 27, full stop, Medina. Pass undercarriage mixture, full rich is good. Little fast. Good. 80, that's nice. A little bit of power. Little fast again. Alright, we got a made power out. Let's get on the rudders to kill some speed. Nice. Speed break up. Medina County, experimental 797 Delta Lima, clear of 27.
And that's it for this video. The plane definitely still has a couple issues, mostly cooling related, but it's flyable and we'll keep working on that. In any case, if you like this video, please click like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. And leave comments if you have any questions, leave in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.